What's up everybody, welcome to my shop. My name's Tony. Today I'm going to show you how to build a bench that also doubles as a footrest. I took this old 2x12 and I cut it for the legs, and it was a little too wide for the miter saw, so I had to cut it in 2 passes. Next I marked out the cutouts for the 2x4 supports going across either side. And then I used a can to trace out the profile of the moon shape for the legs. And then I took it to the bandsaw to cut out the waist. I used the first leg to trace the second, and I repeated the process. Then I clamped the boards together and sanded them at the same time so I could get the exact same shape for both legs. Then I cut the stretchers for the length of the bench and installed those. And I cut down the boards that would make the top of the bench, and here I accidentally bought oversized 1x material, so I cut these two together. And just be careful if you have a cut like this with it hanging over your table saw. And then I ripped them down to the final size. So I just got to the point of the build where I realized I had a problem. And this is the problem you run into when you're buying lumber from the big box store. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. Come over here. So, I thought I had these feet level when I was building this. And then, all of a sudden I had this massive wobble. And I thought I got these two legs off somehow, or they had shifted. But let me show you what's happening. So, this 2x4 right here is twisted, and when I let go of the twist, no wobble whatsoever. However, when I transfer that tension of that wobble to the leg, it goes back to the leg. So, solution. Another 2x4. So, I'm going to clean that one up and put it on and see if we can get rid of that wobble. So now it's time to glue up the base, and I'm using Titebond 3 because it is waterproof, and this bench will be outdoors most of the time. And now I'm just checking for square before I drive in the screws. And it's always a good idea to pre-drill, especially when you're towards the edge of your board. It most definitely will split, especially with a bigger deck screw like this one here. And just giving it a quick cleanup before the glue starts to set. So now that I got the legs attached, I'm just going to take these little pieces of 2x4 and I'm going to just strengthen up the middle here. So when I put the boards across the top, they don't kind of sag to the center because there's no support for them in the middle, because there'll be two boards. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those up and screw them down. So I pre-drilled some kind of toenail holes, or pocket holes if you will, and the reason for that is I wanted to leave as many screws on the inside as possible and not have to fill so many holes along the way. I wanted to put a rounded profile on these boards, and instead of using the router I elected to just use the sander here, and it actually works very fast. I decided to put a round over on all the edges along the outside, and you can actually install these boards ahead of time and then run your router over it by hand, but here I'm just going to use the router table. It's just easier for me. Then I want to fill the screw holes here before I put the top on. That way I can sand all these edges here and the top would not interfere with the sanding. Next, it was time to run some glue across the top and get the two top boards put on. And again, I'm using Titebond 3. Cut my boards to allow for a 3/4 of an inch overhang on all four sides. So here I'm just taking my depth gauge and lining up all the edges. And I decided to use the air nailer with some galvanized nails to basically act as clamps to hold it in place while the glue dries. You certainly don't have to use the nails here. You can clamp it down and wait for it to dry. Alright, so now that I got everything put together, I got the nail holes filled. The last thing to do is just lightly sand this top. It's pretty good already. Just need to sand up the wood filler in the edges where I routed, and then we'll put a finish on it. So now that I've sanded this down to 220 grit and I've blown off the excess sawdust, I'm ready to throw some Spar urethane on. I'm going to put on about 3 coats, and then I'll end up putting on some little plastic feet to keep it off the ground, and this project will be done.